Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming today to testify on this issue. Some of my questions were also taken, so I'll just reemphasize. I think there's consensus that the number of 99.4% probably is not accurate. Would we all agree on that? Does PSEA believe that that's the case? Okay. Just out of curiosity, does PSEA track how many teachers are let go each year for poor performance?
No, but I bet if you went to, not that I know, sort of, I'm asked. I don't do that kind of work. As a local president, I could tell you how many in my local were. And I think if we asked, we could get that information.
Okay. I would like to know that, just out of curiosity.
Right. At a local level, we all know.
Right. Okay. Just so I understand, is it AFT and PSEA's position or your concern with the augment bill mainly on the 50% that's based on test scores and evaluation? You're okay the way it sounds with the Danielson rubric?
Yes. We were part of the pilot. That was my subcommittee that helped develop that for the pilot.
Right. So it's not so much the one half, the Danielson half, it's the teacher evaluation based on student performance
and
test
the implementation
scores
of next school year.
Right. And you're afraid it's going to be done too quickly?
Correct.
Okay. And I think most people would agree that we want to do this right, and we want to do it the right way the first time if we can. I also think that it's highly likely that with any new legislation or change, there's always going to need to be tweaks at some point, as you progress and as things change. And I do think, as Representative Truitt and the maker of the bill have pointed out, it just provides a framework with a lot of flexibility to the local school districts. One of my questions for you is, in your testimony, Linda, it said that it was on page 4.
Mine are numbered different.
When you were talking about the teacher evaluations, it's the last full paragraph says the good news is that there are ways to measure student outcomes that can help teachers. Teachers measure student growth all the time through curriculum-based pre- and post-tests, student projects, performance, specially designed assessments for IEPs, goals, inventories, etc. Are you arguing or debating that should be part of the 50% teacher evaluation for test performance?
Those are things that should be included as multiple measures of student achievement.
Okay. I guess the question I have with that component is the teacher in that case is the one who is in sole control of everything. They're the creator of the assessments. They're the implementer of the assessments. They're the evaluator of the assessments. They're doing everything themselves.
Not necessarily. And my reading assessments were part of the reading program that were to be done before and after. My math assessments were district created. We also had some computer assessment programs for math that we did 4 times a year that anybody could see the results. And in fact, I had a lot of these, I had to turn in the results.
Okay. So through your basic curriculum, you're executing the curriculum. So you're still doing all that. To me, those components, those evaluations, those practices would be part of the 50% Danielson rubric, not part of the 50% teacher test score evaluation. I don't say that that's not a critical part, but to me, based on what's happening, that's actual day-to-day classroom conduct. That is indicative of a really good teacher who can make those adjustments, who can change, who can do those evaluations, who are actually implementing and exercising those day-to-day practices through the pedagogy and everything else. So to me, that all is critical, but that really should fall under the 50% of Danielson's rubric side of the evaluation process.
The fact that I use them would fall under the rubric, not the results of them.
Okay.
There's a distinction between the two.
The measure is student performance, as it is in the bill. It's not test scores. that was actually something that we talked about a lot today, is that we're not limiting our measures of student performance to test scores alone. So my pedagogy, the way in which I create these things, the way in which I administer them, the feedback I give to students, that's all part of my observation and what you would get in the 50% Danielson.
Right.
My students' results, their achievement as measured by these things. And I don't have sole control because my building leader, my instructional coaches, my principal, they're monitoring and reviewing my lesson plans. They're frequently seeing the materials I create. If I'm doing teacher-made assessments, they're seeing those too. So there are many sets of eyes and many levels of expertise that have a hand in creating those things to help support even newer and struggling teachers in that those assessments be really valid and related to the high standards that we have for our classroom instruction.
You're saying that department chairs and others are looking at classrooms per student assessments of the teachers? You are?
We are.
We are.
It's a lot of work, and it's really necessary.
Okay. I've never
That was one
I've
of
never
my
seen that
jobs as
myself.
the
Are we talking-
math lead teacher in my building, was to look at all those math assessments in individual classrooms.
I guess my experience was a little different then.
It may have been.
And I guess the last question I have is, on the last page of your testimony, Linda, the first full paragraph where it talks about, it says PSEA consistently advocates for systems that reflect current research. You said, we know what high-quality evaluation looks like. What systems, what legislation, what recommendations has PSEA brought forth prior to Representative Alment drafting this legislation to actually bring sufficient, adequate change to the table? I mean,
We've participated since the beginning in the Gates Momentum.
Which was when?
Excuse me?
When did that start?
A year and a half ago.
Okay.
And we have our, I call it book, but we have our Publication Solutions at Work that was put out almost 2 years ago that also references teacher performance and evaluation. And through the years, we've had great discussions about teachers' evaluations outside of the organizations and shared what our researchers and our staff have learned and what teachers have learned about evaluation.
Okay, so just over a year ago, the Gates, 2 years ago, they released the book. But PSEA's been around for a heck of a long time, haven't they?
If you've asked us to share what we thought were teacher evaluation practices, we've given it. I know that we have come out in-service programs throughout the years that I was involved. We have a Council of Instruction and Professional Development. That is an ongoing discussion with them all the time. They've presented workshops, they've presented to the School Boards Association, administrators groups, and have done it throughout many of the years that I've been involved.
Okay, because I mean, if this was a pressing issue to move forward on, I would have assumed, and especially with your testimony, that with the 9 points that PSEA knows evaluation systems, that we would have seen legislation moving in this area long ago, not just at this point in
Well, we don't write
2011.
legislation.
No, I know.
We can
but
guide and give advice, but...
Well, I know you don't write legislation, but PSEA is highly involved in many, many pieces of legislation.
Correct.
So I just find it amazing that at this point, PSEA is just coming to the forefront with the discussion of teacher evaluations to this
We've
degree.
always been part of a discussion on teacher evaluation.
Well, maybe the word discussion is the operative word, because I would have thought, based on PSEA's concern to improve teacher quality, to improve pro-public education policies, that an effective and important teacher evaluation system would have been much higher on the priority table. But that's just my opinion. I mean, PSEA may have different things that they would like to share, different priorities that they've had over the years.
And I think they've always had an ongoing discussion about teachers' evaluation.
Okay. And what was the example you gave of the school district and the child who didn't have an art and a music teacher?
Chester Upland.
Okay. And that was What grade was that? What grade level?
It's the entire district.
The entire district has no art or music programs?
They have one art teacher, no music.
Okay. All right. I think you've made I'm going to go off topic here, but I think you've made an excellent argument for the economic furlough bill so that we could save those kinds of programs. But thank you very much.